All right, so next we have Jennifer Tabrizi. She's going to talk about nervous system regulation for better health, and her gift is the 3-day health reset. So, welcome, Jennifer. So happy and excited to have you with us.
Thank you, Pamela. I'm super excited to be here and chat about this. I want to start off by highlighting just how funny the world is and our universe and how it can be 30 minutes before this presentation. My laptop smashed on the ground. I was like, of course, but it's working. It's working. We're good. But talk about stress. And it made me just think, haha, I'm giving a talk on this. So
You're
the
not the
universe
only
gives
one
us.
that has happened to today.
Okay, I was hoping that'd be the case. It's not just me. But it got me really in the mindset of talking stress
Yes.
management. So I'm really excited to go through this presentation today. All right. Well, welcome everyone. It is great to be here with you. I wanted to just even start this off by just thanking Pamela because I have done a couple of these with her now, and she is just very organized, and there's a lot of work that goes into this, and she is just always on her A game. So, Pamela, thank you for getting this together
Thank you.
and
You're
having us
welcome.
here. Just super excited to be here. And also, I think you should all be giving yourself a huge pat on the back for being on the back for being here because
Yes.
this shows that you're ready to make some changes, you're ready to learn, you're eager to do some different things. And so I think that deserves a huge shout out for being here. I wanted to start off this presentation with a just quick quote on stress. So, stress isn't what happens to us, it's our response to what happens. And response is something we can choose. Things like dropping your laptop on the ground before your presentation on stress, not something we can control, but how we deal with the things that come up in our lives is what's going to change the game for you when it comes to your health. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's presentation. So, just a little bit about me before we get started. So, my name is Jennifer, and I'm certified as a personal trainer, yoga teacher, nutrition coach, and gut health expert. Now, even though I am in the health and wellness industry, and I have been since 2017, I have not always had a healthy routine. Back when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I really didn't care about my health whatsoever. And this all really changed for me back in 2010. I started to get really sick. I was dealing with 8 to 10 bowel movements per day. Was very embarrassing. I didn't know what was going on with my body. And it took about a year and a half before I was finally given a diagnosis. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And if you know much about Crohn's disease, it's an autoimmune disease. There's no real cure for it. And as if that's not enough, I was told, oh, your case is so severe and you have precancerous cells in your colon and you might have to get it removed. And so this was a huge wake up call for me. And I really started to dive deep into how I could improve my health. And that's what I have done ever since that moment. I took step by step, little small steps every day. I didn't do it all at once, but I started learning. I started learning about nutrition. I started learning about exercise. And then stress was one of the final things I discovered on my path. And what we'll be covering today is how, some oftentimes stress is the last thing that we discover, and how to manage it. And it actually should be the one of the first things. And I say that because I experienced this myself. And now it's something when I work with a client, that's one of the first things we look at. And I'll explain why that is in today's presentation. So eventually going down this path, I was able to reduce my symptoms, get them under control. I was on medication as well to help with this, but I feel like through a mix of all the things I worked on, I was able to finally be in remission from Crohn's disease, and it's been 7.5 years. And so now my mission is to help other people with their health, no matter what's going on and what they're dealing with. All right, so today's topic, what we're talking about is nervous system regulation for better health. And I have it here again, I'm not going to repeat the statement here, but it should be one of the first things you focus on when it comes to your health, because it has a trickle effect in all the other things that you are working on when it comes to your health, including your nutrition, your exercise, and your sleep. Everything works together. So, how to know if you're in the right place? So, if you are currently struggling with at least one of these things, you are in the right place. So, digestion issues like gas, bloating, and constipation. It can even be diarrhea or a mix between diarrhea and constipation. Weight management issues. This could be losing weight, gaining weight, and just not ever feeling like you can maintain your weight in a healthy way. Maybe you're dealing with chronic health issues or autoimmune illness. You might be dealing with constant fatigue, irritability, and mood swings. These are big ones here. And then as well as brain fog and concentration issues. And you don't have to resonate with all of those, even if it's just one, you're going to benefit from today's presentation. So, and this is going to help you to turn these things around. So, if you want to drastically improve your digestion, lose weight more easily, or gain weight more easily, if that's your goal, to reduce the symptoms of illness, also to increase your energy levels, feel more positive and happy overall, and also have a clear mind where you're not feeling like everything's foggy and you have a lot of clarity in the things you're doing. Now, I don't know about you, but these are all things like I'm like, we want all this. All of us want to feel it this way every day, right? So I hope you can resonate with some of these things and that you're excited, because I'm excited to share this topic. And I want you to also know, hey, I want this to be interactive. I don't want me to just be like talking away and blabbing away. And so if you have any questions, just feel free to drop them in the chat and we can address them at the end. And then also just make sure, like, hey, if there's something that doesn't make sense, you can always just let us know in the chat. All right. So what is nervous system regulation? A lot of people hear it and they're like, what the heck is that? What? And it's really important because you should really care about it. And here's why. So by definition, nervous system regulation is the ability to move flexibly between states of arousal in responses to our stressors. So for example, perfect example, I'm like, now I know why this happened. I dropped my computer. Oh my gosh, I went into a state of panic, right? And so that's normal. This comes from when our ancestors years ago, when they were running from saber-toothed tigers, the stress response would kick in, right? And they would run away and run away from danger. So we do want to have that kind of stress response because it does protect us. For example, in a more modern example, if we're crossing the street, we look both ways and we're about to cross and the car comes out of nowhere, we jump out of the car, way of the car. We don't want to get hit. So we do want the stress response for our safety. And we also don't want to spend a long time in this. It's meant to come in a burst, right? And give us some safety or make us do something, take some sort of action, and then move on and be able to regulate back to our normal selves. So there are a few different states that the nervous system goes into, but we're going to be talking about two of them. So one is the sympathetic system, which is going to control fight or flight. This is the, hey, if the stove is hot, we know not to touch it, right? Or if we are touching it, we're like, woo, get it away. That is a good stress response for our safety. But the problem is most of us are spending a lot of time in this state, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Where we want to be spending most of our time is in the parasympathetic state. This is what's known as rest and digest. This is where we are in harmony. Our mind is thinking clearly. We're not anxious. We're not overthinking. Our body is relaxed. We can digest food with ease. We're sleeping better, right? So the problem is, like I mentioned, the average human being is spending almost 90% of their day in what's known as fight or flight because we're going through our day on autopilot, right? We're just going through the motions and we're never really checking in with ourselves. So we're going to be looking at what we can do to fix this and how we can check in with this to see, hey, what state am I in? So I actually would love for us to do a little exercise before we get into the educational part of everything. So let's go ahead and just let's all shut down our eyes. Good. And I want you to put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. And then go ahead and start to take some deep breaths in and out. Gonna do that a couple more times. Nice deep breath in. And let it out. And on your next breath in, I want you to pay attention to which hand rises first on your inhale. Noticing if it's the bottom hand on your belly or the hand on your heart. You can do a couple breaths if you're not sure. Just really try and feel it out. Good. And then you can release your hands and slowly open your eyes, coming back into our space. Now, does anyone want to, or maybe a show of hands, like, hey, who felt their top hand rise first? Anyone? Okay, yeah, I'm seeing some hands up. That's good. What about the bottom one? Anyone see the bottom one? Or feel the bottom one go? Yeah, okay, I got some hands up here. Yeah, okay. So this is a great exercise that you can practice anywhere at any time. I mean, maybe not while driving, but this is a great way to check in with yourself. When we are in a more calm state, which is the parasympathetic state, we are going to be noticing our breath. When we're inhaling, the bottom hand is rising first. When we're in a more oh, sorry, I said that wrong. The parasympathetic, the more relaxed state. Oh no, I didn't say that wrong. I'm sorry, forgive me. The bottom hand, when that's moving first, that means we are in a relaxed state. Shallow breathing from the chest. We're getting towards that sympathetic state. So oftentimes this is what I get my clients to do is just, hey, check in with yourself throughout the day and see how you can slow your breath down, start taking those belly breaths. And that's just a simple way to switch these states. All right, so what are the benefits of all this, of spending more time in rest and digest? One, we're going to have less stress and anxiety, less of a worried mind. We're going to be sleeping better. We're going to have better digestion, better immune function. So we won't be experiencing pesky symptoms. We can get over colds quickly. We'll have emotional resilience. Things won't bother us as much. We'll be able to handle things. And we'll also have better physical performance. We'll have more energy. We'll be able to get workouts in. We won't feel like we need 5 cups of coffee to get through the day. So the protocol. So we're going to talk about what can we do other than that little exercise I gave you that's going to help you regulate your nervous system and keep it happy and healthy. Everything is connected, and that's what we'll really see with these points here that we're about to go into. So the number one best way you can support your nervous system is by going to bed earlier. So many of us are going to bed at 12 o'clock, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. But Jen, I'm getting 8 hours sleep. We are not getting the same quality sleep by going to bed at that time, even if we're getting 8 hours, because it can really impact our circadian rhythm. Now, I know this can be challenging if you are a shift worker, and so that it can get a little more complex, but when possible, we want to strive to go to bed at an early time. So ideally around that 10 to 11 p.m. is that ideal time because we're going to get really good quality sleep. And sleep is important because we want to make sure that we're getting that repair and the cell growth and rejuvenation so that our body can function properly. So ways we can do this is we want to create some type of soothing night routine, which looks a little less like scrolling, the endless doom scroll, right? We don't want to be doing that all night while laying in bed. And I know it's a tricky thing. We're so connected to our phones these days. But if we can set some limits with ourselves, maybe, hey, at a certain time, phone goes on airplane mode or it's out of the room so that you're not easily reaching for it. And maybe you do something a little more gentle and calming for yourself. Maybe it's reading a book or doing some gentle stretches or even some breathing exercises just to really reconnect with yourself rather than stimulate yourself more, right? Because then it can be challenging to fall asleep and then you're not getting that same quality of sleep. So my last point here, put that phone away. That's the way I found it. It works. Otherwise, it's if it's there in your sight, you're probably gonna grab for it. Coming from my own experience with this. Number two, your nervous system loves consistent routine. So I'm not here to say I need every day to look like Groundhog Day and be the exact same thing. But if we can give ourselves a 1 to 2 hour window for certain things, like the time we wake up, the time we go to bed, the times we're eating, the times we're working out, and the times we are working in general, and then even time for fun. Like if we can create some kind of routine, I know, of course, all of us have different jobs, and sometimes that's not 100% doable. But we want to create as much of a routine as we can. So, hey, maybe your routine changes throughout the week and your schedule is different. How can you create a routine throughout the whole week where you're like, Monday's my day where I do this, and Tuesday's this, and Wednesday's that? Even if you're able to do that, that is still enough to create some kind of routine for yourself. And that's what your nervous system loves. Also your your digestive system loves this as well, because it loves that regularity. So it's kind of like a double win here, if you focus on this. And again, I'm not saying like 12:01 at the on the nose every day you got to be eating your lunch, but if you could set some ground rules for yourself, like, hey, between 12 and 2 every day, like that, like meals need to happen that day, right? Sometimes we forget, we work, and we get busy and we forget to eat and all those types of things. So if you can get into that habit of creating that routine, oh, it does make a world of a difference, and your nervous system will be a lot more relaxed and not so high strung, because when every day is different, it's kind of like, well, what is she gonna do? What are they gonna do today? Oh my gosh, what are we doing? Right. So if we create that routine, it creates more consistency, and it creates more consistency for your habits in general. So it's like a triple winner here. Number three, we need to slow down more often. We live in a world where, it's so easy to grab our phones. And, I often hear this from clients. They'll be like, I don't know. I just started looking at my phone. And then I was like, next thing I knew, I was 3 apps in. And then it was like 2 hours later. It's like we get so lost in it,
I
right?
get stuck watching the reels on Facebook.
Right? I know. And you're like, oh, the reels, maybe one more will be good. Okay, one more.
I hear that a lot.
It's hard to break out of it, right? And so it is hard in this day and age, and it's a lot easier before the age of internet and cell phones, but I think it's a really important practice that we still need to bring into our routine and our day to day, just to check in with ourselves. So slowing down, sometimes people will be like, well, Jen, like I already have this busy routine. How am I going to fit in an hour of meditation? And right, they want to go like all in with it, but slowing down doesn't have to be this hour-long thing we do, right? Look at the simple practice I gave you before we got into this. That took maybe a minute. That's an easy way you could slow down. And that's often something I tell my clients to do before their meals. Like, hey, maybe you just take 3 to 5 deep breaths before you eat, right? So I think it's important to not fixate on, slowing down and meditation and mindfulness being this crazy long thing and just one more thing we have to add to our to-do list. And instead ask yourself how you can bring it into what you're already doing on a day-to-day, because that's going to make it a lot easier, take some of the pressure off, and make sure that you actually do it. Right. And another great way that I actually love to do this is I know I said like no phones before bed, but right before bed, I always, before I say goodbye to my phone, I will put headphones in and I will open YouTube, find a sound bath. I will listen to that for 10 minutes, just taking some deep breaths. Once the 10 minutes up, phone's gone, time to go to bed, right? Like I'm not like looking at my phone while it's on, just
Mhm.
hearing it. It's very, very soothing, and it's a nice way to disconnect from everything and reconnect to your body, and the sounds that just naturally make your nervous system be like, "Oh," and it just makes you feel like you're letting go of all the stuff you've carried around with you all day. So if you haven't tried that, and maybe you're like, "Meditation, I've tried it, didn't work for me," that might be a good way to try. Try something different. Oh, rushing. Rushing is a big one with this too. Multitasking on the go. Like I get we're all so busy, right? But if we can start to be more mindful of that, giving ourselves enough time, and making sure we're not, driving somewhere and eating in our lap or like
Oh
something like
yeah.
that.
Eating while driving.
Yeah, eating while driving, like, we don't wanna do that because what that's doing, your nervous system is being like, "Oh my gosh," like, it's hyped up, and, like, not to mention, like, I know, okay, maybe driving and eating is, like, drastic, but even if you're at your desk and you're, like, typing away or you're on the phone and you're Googling something, like, that's the same kind of response that's gonna be happening. So, do you really think your digestion is gonna be happy with that? No, it's not gonna digest food properly, your nervous system is being like, there's danger. And it
Yeah.
doesn't know the difference of, hey, I'm gonna like something really bad's gonna happen. And hey, okay, like Jennifer just hasn't taken some breaths, right? It's still gonna be the same type of response. And we don't want that. If we can reduce that, we're gonna continue to see some positive changes in our life and our health.
Susan as asking, what is your favorite meditation in the morning and before bed?
Ooh, okay. In the morning, I pour myself a cup of hot water and I just go sit in my office and I just take some deep breaths. Sometimes I do alternate nostril breathing. I don't know if you've heard of that, but you basically cover your right nostril, breathe in through the left, and then you cover the left side, and breathe out through the right. This is actually really good at bringing the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain into balance. So that's something you could do. And you could really do those before bed too. I find what's helped me the most because I was one of those people that was like, "Oh, well, if I don't have an hour for the meditation, I suck at this," or like, you know what I mean? It would just make me not do it. So I find for me, it's all about like, okay, what's gonna work with my routine and make me to do something rather than commit to this like hour-long thing where I'm like, I can't do that, I'm not gonna do anything. Right. So I feel like just making it simple for yourself. Maybe it's just doing the hand on the heart and the hand on the belly and doing some belly breaths. I really love to keep it simple. So I hope that helps your and it answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. And also YouTube has some really great sleep meditations that I actually listen to overnight. So I fall asleep faster. And then if I happen to wake up in the middle of the night for one reason or another, it's still on. So it helps me fall back asleep faster. Joe Dispenza has some, like you can just Google on search in YouTube, some really good ones.
Yeah, yeah. And even piggybacking off that, Pamela, even like affirmations, there's some powerful ones out there that you can like fall asleep to.
Yeah, Brian
As
Brian Scott is one I just found him and I was like, oh, I'm like what he does. He does I am all night.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's just it. Like, it's important to kind of like feel it out and try some new things and see what you really like because I feel like all of us are different and want something different. And some people might be like, "Well, I don't like that. I wake up in the middle of the night and my headphones falling out," or like something like that, right? So it's really about trying a bunch of things and just going towards what you like and what works for you and being able to identify that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to bring about because it happened to me where I was fine. I was like, oh, this is a good person, this is a good one, but I didn't resonate with the frequency. The
Oh.
frequency, I was like, ooh, and it was just like something that was like, so if you're doing one that has like certain frequencies, your body just might not like that frequency, just the FYI.
Yeah, that's
Extra
really
initiative.
important to highlight because even with the sound baths, sometimes I'll just like click one that's on my homepage on YouTube and be like, okay, try this one out. It's for relaxation. And my body's like, no, no, and like I'll have to change it and find something else. So frequencies are really important to pay attention to. Um, which I feel like has something to do with the chakras and like knowing what you need and what's blocked and what's not. But that's a whole other can of worms and a whole other presentation. We won't get into that today. All right, eating well. We need to make sure we're nourishing our bodies, as that's going to keep our nervous system nourished as well and in alignment, right? So everyone's always chasing what's the perfect diet? What's the perfect diet? And in my eyes, the perfect diet doesn't exist, but because we're all so different. But if we're able to limit processed foods and make sure that, at least 80% of the time we're eating whole foods, that is the most important thing. And your nervous system is going to love that. And then, of course, I'm sure a lot of us here are familiar with like making sure we're getting enough protein, making sure we're eating enough fats and carbs. We need to make sure we're supporting ourselves and not skipping out on meals and stuff like that, right? Because then our nervous system is going to be like, oh, it's going to amplify everything, right? So we need to make sure we're doing that. This goes for skipping meals too. Breakfast is a big one. When we skip breakfast, it can really mess us up, right? And it can really, really mess up the nervous system. And then by lunchtime, it's like, right? We feel like, oh my God, I'm starved. I need to eat everything, right? So making sure we're doing our best again to set that daily routine where we're eating at regular times and getting those meals in and not skipping them frequently is a really big one. All right, daily movement. So, movement is important because what it does is it helps to balance fight or flight and rest and digest. Of course, there's also, I'm sure everyone's been seeing like the videos out there where like people will do like the shaking. Like, that's a good way to just kind of let everything go. Even for me, I feel like I should have done that when I dropped my computer. I should be like, oh, get this out of me. But yeah, like just like a quick way to do it is like the shaking, just to let it go or even dancing. But of course, we want to make sure we're getting a daily routine going with some type of movement. And it doesn't have to be anything extravagant, or we don't need to spend hours in the gym every single day. We need to find what works for us, and the things that we love, because that's what's going to make sure you stick to these things, and create some type of consistent routine with it, right? So making sure you're doing this, which I feel like a lot of you are like, oh yeah, I love my daily movement. So yeah, we want to make sure we're doing that. It's just going to support your nervous system. And not only that, it's going to keep your mind calm. It's going to help you let go of some stress. And so we can see how this everything's connected, and we're gonna just feel ultimately like our best self by doing all these practices, but especially movement. It's a good way to get all that energy out. We need to be disconnecting more often. We've touched on this a little bit, but hey, if we can spend some time away from our phone and not being so like reachable, if we can, maybe with the family on the weekend, you go for a hike and you leave the phone somewhere and you just really live in the moment. We don't really live in the moment these days. We're always like, okay, well, take a picture, or like, you know what I mean? We're not as present as we could be, I feel. And I think that disconnecting from, the roles we play, like for work and stuff like that, and our phones in general, it allows us to be playful with ourselves, and for our body to just relax and not feel this pressure of like, oh, oh, email, we gotta check the email, like, right? And then, oh, all weekend you're like, oh, did someone email me? Like, oh, I gotta email that person, right? And see how it's like a trickle effect. If we could just spend, even if it's like maybe you're like, I can't do that, I don't know where to even start. Maybe this weekend you just take an hour away from your phone and go do something you love, whether it's reading a book or doing some gardening or some yard work. Anything that's just going to allow you to disconnect from the outside world and just really get present in the moment. It's so powerful because you'll really see how in a couple moments of doing it and just getting lost in the flow of things, you can you'll have to pay attention a little bit, but you'll notice that your body just naturally starts to relax, right? And then it doesn't feel like there's a million to-do thing list, a long list of to-dos to do later on. So I think this is something that we should all practice. as much as we can. I know with our busy lives, it can be hard, but yeah, I think it is one of those things that it's small, but it makes the world of a difference. And I think it is important, like find those things that bring you joy. Maybe it's music or art or just going on a walk and listening to a book on an audio player or something like that, as long as you're not checking your phone while you're doing it. But yeah, so this is a big one. Kind of leads us into this one. So nature is just naturally so healing, right? And so if we can spend more time out in nature, maybe it's near in a forest or near water, this is just very grounding for us, and it can be very calming on not only our mind but our body as well. So experience that more. Like maybe there's a forest nearby or a trail nearby where you live, and it's as simple as just going there and walking around and just, walking slow and disconnecting and just taking in all the sights and sounds and colors and just not having to worry about all these other things, right? And just taking that time for yourself. And this is just a simple and great way to just disconnect and reconnect. And your nervous system is really going to love this.
Mhm.
All right, so last here is your mindset. So obviously our mind is everything's connected. So if we are going up in our mind, it's going to have an impact on our body and vice versa. So if we can bring the two into balance as much as possible and really understand what we need to do to make sure that we're managing our mindset, whether it's through journaling or affirmations, motivating talks, whatever it's going to take to get you out of a mindset funk is really important. And I like to explain it like mindset work is like a muscle. We don't just do it once. You don't just go to the gym once, right? You got to do it for a long time. And your mindset works the same way. I just want to make sure I'm mindful on time here. We're getting close to the 30-minute mark here. All right, so just to summarize everything today, so the key points I want for you to take away, that was 8 points I just talked about. I don't want you to feel like, oh my God, that's 8 more things I gotta go focus on right now. Slow it down, take one of those things, get really good at it, and then start adding in the other ones. But if we could put it into 4 different things, the ones I would really, really tell you to focus on are prioritizing your sleep and having some type of practice that gets you to slow down, making sure you have somewhat of a daily routine, and if it's not the same every day, a weekly routine. Make sure you're moving and make sure you're building a strong mindset. Thank you so much
Absolutely.
for being
Absolutely.
here.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And the link to grab her gift, her 3-day health reset, is in the chat to the side. Is also on the speaker page. Any suggestions on who to listen to for motivation?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean,
There's
I
so many out there.
yeah, there's so many out there. I feel like for me, like I just will Google like motivational morning talk or
Hmm.
like a 10-minute thing and I'll listen to it in the morning when I'm out with my dogs. But again, it's all like I think just experiment. Google it, Google that on YouTube or not Google on YouTube. Search it on YouTube and just kind of play around and see what really gets you to feel really good and motivated. Sometimes those talks make me like, okay, today's gonna be the day, like, right? So just
And
making sure you find what works for
yeah.
you because
And
there's so
don't
many.
forget about music that you like can be very motivational.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you have that song that no matter where you're at, you got to dance to it or at least move your body.
That's why I have multiple pump up playlists that I
Right?
put on my Spotify.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Do so appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.